Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Towerlight Sports video and audio podcast. I'm Jonathan Munshaw, the editor-in-chief. Once again, I'm joined by Jones and Matt Hamtilton. Sorry,
Looking very fancy today.
Yes.
I dressed up for the podcast. I really did.
Sorry, we weren't with you last week. We actually wanted to do Dr. Richard Vatz's class to go talk. We listened to Peter Schmuck from the Baltimore Sun. He covers the Orioles for them. We listened to him talk about persuasion, and it was actually pretty interesting.
It was great.
And it was cool to meet him. So it was a really interesting class, but sorry we couldn't be with you last week. But this week we are going to talk about some of the surprises that came out of the first week of Major League Baseball. And also we're going to talk about Terrance West. Matt and I went to his pro day yesterday and saw all 22 teams, well, not all 22, but 22 NFL teams represented there looking at Mr. West and the rest of the Towson seniors, but mainly Terrance. So we're going to talk about his draft prospects. Going to have to apologize for my voice today. I have a little bit of a cold, so I've been fighting that off all week.
You sound great. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it, okay?
Just get away.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start off with baseball because I don't think it's going to take nearly as long as our conversation with Terrance is going to take. But your guys' Orioles started out kind of slow, but we were just talking about it before this, and Jesse, you said you weren't really surprised by their start because of their schedule.
Not really. Yeah, the schedule was the hardest one. I mean, I guess I'm a little surprised how bad the offense has been. Except for today, they're up 4-1 on the Yankees. Hope that holds true. Yeah, take it, Yankees. But
Chen's pitching today, isn't he?
Yes. Chen against Kuroda? Or no, it's someone, I don't know.
I've been in class all day. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was there last Thursday against the Red Sox. I was surprised they didn't win that game. That was one they should have won. They lost by 1 run, but I'm just not that surprised. The record does not shock me right now. Detroit's a great team. I guess the offense has been pretty slow. Ubaldo Jimenez has not been good. Jesus. Besides that, I mean, they've been in some of the games. Some not so much. Like, they'll give up a lot of runs, but then come back. I don't really know. Because their offense is slow at the start, and then it'll pick up or something. But then,
I mean, to be fair, there are 162 games in every baseball season.
Yeah,
so
I'm not really worried about
you're
it.
You're going to go on 7-game stretches where you go 2-5.
Yeah. Orioles fans, be patient, okay? This is 7 games in, but...
Orioles fans are known, though, to give up pretty early.
Not me, but yes, they do. They do have a tendency to kind of give up on the team. And, I mean, there's people already that are like, whoa, this is going to be a long season. I'm like, we're 2-5. Like, we're good. But, I mean, Boston and Detroit are probably the 2 teams in the AL that I would say definitively are definitely better than the Orioles and would beat them in a series in the playoffs or beat them in a single game. Those are the 2 teams. The other teams, like basically anyone else in the AL, I could see the Orioles beating in a series or something like that where they're a better team. So I wouldn't read too much into it. Yeah, we lost to the Yankees. It was their opening day, Derek Jeter's last opening day, so they were emotional or something. And I think we'll just need to be more consistent, and I think that'll come with time. I mean, we had Chris Tillman pitched over 8 innings 2 days ago. So if we can get something like that from Jimenez, from Chen, from Gonzalez or Norris or anyone, we'll be in much better shape.
And there are some Nationals fans out there, I think, but Nationals are...
There are some Expo fans out there.
Yeah, there are some Expo fans.
Montreal, in Canada. Woo!
It's Montreal.
Well, if you say it in French, it's not.
Oh, dear.
Matt's Canadian. We don't get along very well about that.
Yeah.
Hey, oh, dear. Ryan Zimmerman, though, I'm actually... you never root for somebody to get injured, but the shoulder inflammation, I think, could be a good thing, because I've been advocating for him to move over to first base for a year and a half now, because I don't think he has that good of an arm anymore. He's getting older. He's been playing for the Nationals for longer than people think he has been, and his arm, frankly, wasn't good enough last year to play third base. Adam LaRoche, actually, though, has been hitting better than he was last year, at least, so we'll see if that keeps up, but for now, I think the Nationals are sitting pretty good, besides Bryce's struggles, but he'll turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the Nationals depth chart very well, because, I mean, I try not to watch the Nationals sometimes, but, Zimmerman's getting older. He's still a quality player, but I think it's just something either DH or first base is somewhere he needs to be. The Nationals, though, they have a team that could go all the way. They have Harper, if he can start hitting. They have the pitching staff with...
That pitching staff is just filthy.
They're amazing. So if you have a good pitching staff, you can go pretty far as long as you get just a little bit of offense. So I think I'd still have some promise, you know.
And I think
don't give up.
Yeah, I think the underrated call up is going to be Tyler Moore. I've been a big Tyler Moore fan since he came into the minors with the Nationals, and he's really played like sparingly. Pretty much over the last 3 years, he's been called up back and down between the minors and the majors. But he's better than a lot of people think he is. So I'd be interested to see what happens if Harper or Span were to be out for an extended period of time. I think that he can play some pretty good baseball. The only other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of surprises was the Miami Marlins, because they're 5-2.
I know maybe one person on that roster.
Yeah, exactly.
Carlos Stanton, is that his name?
The artist formerly known as Mike.
The only one I know on that roster.
They have
I'll
a
do
pitcher.
the pitching staff. I have no idea anyone on the pitching staff.
They have a pitcher who might be one of the best pitchers in the game.
Jose Fernandez.
Yeah, it's Fernandez. He dirty. That's the word. That's the word I came up with. But he's really good, and he's going to lead them in each game that he played. Last year, I think he was Rookie of the Year last year, or at least in the running for it.
He's been in the league for 3 years, though, hasn't he?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but but yeah, he's a quality pitcher, and the Marlins, I would say they are benefiting from the opposite of the Orioles. They play Colorado and San Diego, which are two pretty below average teams, but it does look like they're pretty promising.
Right.
So
Troy Tulowitzki's the man, though.
Oh, he's good. I like Troy Tulowitzki.
He's the man.
My thing with the Marlins is I just don't think they're going to keep this up. I was looking at some of their players that are performing well. I think Giancarlo is.
Is that how it is?
Yeah.
Giancarlo.
That sounds
I
like
like Giancarlo.
Yeah, that sounds like the name of a bachelor, actually, though. If like the next bachelor is probably his name will be Giancarlo.
What was it? Juan Pablo.
Instead of
Juan Pablo Montoya was the last bachelor.
Juan Pablo.
Oh dear. But I was looking at his numbers, and I think he'll stay about consistent. He has an on base percentage right now of 406, and he's slugging 655, which are just a little bit over his career averages. So he'll probably regress to the mean a little bit, but not a lot. So I don't think his numbers are going to slow down anytime soon. But as Jesse said, if you look at their pitching rotation, there's not really any talent there besides Jose Fernandez.
Yeah.
And even Hernandez right now in 2 starts has a K/9 ratio of 12.08. So which is exactly. So he's not gonna. I mean, he won't keep that up. Unless he's like gunning for the Cy Young this year.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. But I'm just gonna go out there and guess that he's not gonna keep up that K/9 rate. And then you look at the bottom 2 starters for them. They have Jacob Turner, who has a career 142 WHIP, which is not good. And Tommy Kohler is their 4th starter, and he only won 5 games last season.
Oh, Tommy Kohler is my favorite.
So
I don't know anything about the Miami Marlins. I'm just gonna sit here and listen to you talk.
Yeah, so I know that they're just catching a lot of attention because of their record, but I just don't want people to go and Google like MLB standings and be like, oh, the Marlins are 5-2, they must be good. Like, as Matt said, they've played 2 pretty below average teams in the Padres and Rockies. But I do want to see where this team goes, because they are the one thing that you can say about them is that they're young.
Yes.
So you certainly can't say that they're not going to show some promise here coming up. And they get to play the Mets, and the Mets are terrible. The Mets are worse than them, I think.
Yeah, and the NL East, other than the Nationals, is pretty wide open. I mean, the Braves are pretty good, but they've had injuries, so I wouldn't be surprised if I saw the Marlins maybe 2nd, 3rd in that division over a Braves or a Phillies team. So, hey, Marlins fans, keep hope. It's
All 5 of you.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's interesting, too, to look out for is the Mariners. Because I thought they were going to I mean, I still think the Robinson Cano contract is awful.
Yes.
But I think they'll probably end up eating like 4 or 5 years of that deal. But I think that they actually do have potential to keep up the pace that they're going on now. They're 5-2 like the Marlins.
Yeah, they had a decent offseason. I mean, I'm not surprised they're 4-2.
I'm not either.
I thought they were I figured that they'd be like a 500 team after like the first 3 weeks, though. But
and they still
could. I mean,
yeah. No, I'm just saying that like they're on pace right now to be above that. But
yeah, the Mariners are an interesting team. Cano is going to give them a boost now. I'm not going to go into the long-term contract discussion and why it doesn't make any sense to sign Cano for, what was it?
10 years.
10 years? My gosh, he's going to be like 40 and crippled and playing for the Mariners. But
Miguel Cabrera will still be around.
Yeah. But, no, I mean, they have a core of players, and they have a decent pitching staff that could keep them competitive. I don't think they're going to win the division, but I think they could be 500, maybe even better than that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna transition sports now in the effort to keep things moving. So, as I said, we're gonna talk about Terrance West now a little bit. Matt, you and I, like I said, were at Pro Day yesterday. It was a pretty cool experience, actually. All of the seniors did work out for the Tigers. Doug Shaw was there.
Eric
Pike
Pike.
was there.
Jordan Love.
Jordan
Love. I saw you.
Monte
pretty good for the time.
Gaddis.
Yeah, Jordan Love got some looks from a lot of the scouts. He had a pretty good crowd around him when he was. They were out in the field running speed drills. They ran 40s. They ran suicides. They're doing some other cone drill that I'd never seen before. I don't know what the name of it would have been, but
I wish I could remember the name. I used to do it when I trained for soccer, way back when I was actually in shape.
But
Yeah.
Jordan Love had a pretty good crowd around him, and Pike had a lot of people looking at him too when he was in the weight room.
4-year starter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Love was one who definitely benefited from this. He had less of the scouts with him at the start, and then he started to run his 40 and started to do the other workouts, and then a little crowd kind of came towards Jordan Love. So I think he helped himself a lot with that.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, I think he's pretty good, and I know there's some other people I'm not going to name, but some former Towerlight writers that don't believe he's that good. No names given, but I think he's pretty good. I mean, he was lockdown corner.
Peter Athens worked out as well, and so did
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
I mean,
Isn't he playing lacrosse again?
Yeah, he is. Good for you, Pete. Okay.
he said hi to Matt too, so I guess Peter and Matt are best buddies now.
We're Twitter followers, so
So you know it's real.
Yeah.
me and Pete were best buddies. Okay.
And the other thing that I thought was interesting was the Ravens were actually there looking at DJ Sovin.
What?
Anyways, so we're going to keep moving. Good for you, DJ.
Yeah, I mean,
He did run. He was very fast. Very, very
yeah,
fast.
Sovin ran 40. He ran 2 40-yard dashes, and he actually moved. He moved
He
pretty
looks
quickly.
like he played soccer before. He's
Yeah, that's
He's
true.
like around my size.
Yeah. So that should be interesting. Maybe he'll get a look from the Ravens, or even if he just gets invited to training camp, that could still be pretty cool.
Yep.
So I think I was kind of looking at Terrance where he stacks up in the draft last night after we went to Pro Day. And right now, I'm going to list the running backs that I think are better than him in the draft, or will go higher than him.
Okay.
So you guys can let me know if there's anybody that you think that Terrance has a better chance of getting drafted higher than.
Say each one, and then we'll say yes or no.
Trey Mason.
Yes.
Yeah. Carlos Hyde.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bishop Sankey.
I don't know
Yeah.
who that is.
Bishop Sankey.
Why do I not know who this is?
He's a guy who no one talks about. He went to Washington.
Yeah, he went to
Yeah.
Washington.
And,
I've been too caught up in basketball.
Yeah, I mean,
season.
I
I'm
don't.
sorry.
I mean, I don't blame you for that.
Go CAA basketball.
he had pretty good combine numbers. So yeah, I would put him ahead.
Then Jeremy Hill.
That one's close.
I think he's
Push.
close. I think
Push.
I think he's close with Jeremy Hill and then Kadeem Carey.
Kadeem Carey, yes, he also did really well in his workout.
Oh, and then Andre Williams, obviously, but he was a Heisman candidate, so
Yeah.
I think that's kind of unfair to compare them. But I think the closest one that Terrance comes to is Jeremy Hill. I think that they're a push.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when I was looking at that, I think that the second round of the NFL draft is going to be really running back heavy.
Oh yeah.
I think the first round is going to be a lot of defensive players, and then the big three quarterbacks, Bortles, Manziel, and Bridgewater. They're going to go somewhere. We'll have a whole nother conversation about where they should go at a
Don't
later date.
forget Derek Carr. He's apparently the next greatest thing.
Yeah, Carr.
You know how his brother panned out.
I think Carr's pushing more toward like late first, early second round now.
Yeah.
But I think that the running backs could go really in the second round. And I think that the NFL draft as a whole is just pushing toward drafting skill position players later in the draft and taking your offensive linemen, taking both like offensive and defensive linemen in the first round and
Yeah,
quarterbacks and things
you've
like that.
just seen running backs throughout the past few drafts. They've just been going later and later and later.
Yeah. So I think that Terrance actually has set himself up pretty well to be like a third round pick.
I think he can go as early as 3. I'm not going to say definitely going.
No, I don't
Third
think
round
definitely
pick.
3 either.
I
but-
think he could go as early as like a mid-third round.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. It will all depend on the draft and how the running backs go, because if the running backs go later, he in turn will just go later. So if they're picking him mid-second round, he may end up going 4th. If someone slides in and goes first round on a running back, then maybe he's early 3rd or something like that. So I think it'll depend on draft day. Obviously, he's anywhere from early 3rd, maybe mid-4th. I've even heard someone say 2nd. I think that's a little too high, but yeah, so he's anywhere in that range.
I just don't think enough running backs would go off the
Yeah.
board by that time
Yeah.
for him to go in the second. Mm-hmm. I think that he could potentially go I mean, he's talented enough to be like a late second, early third round pick, but I just don't know if enough backs are going to go off the board before that.
You never see running backs in the first round. So.
And
Excuse me.
I don't know if you're going to mention this, but the teams that
I was gonna
stood
bring
out. Okay, so you go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, you can go.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
to me, the teams that stood out that seemed like they were pretty interested in Terrance. Well, we heard talk before about the Titans. I think CBS Sports did an article about them.
Yeah, he flew down to Nashville last week. And then Arizona Cardinals running backs coach was actually at his mom's house.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the Bengals running coach interviewed him before Pro Day. Jaguars had him after Pro Day, and
The
so did-
Jaguars running backs coach was there.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Pro Day.
and a couple other teams met with him after too. But in terms of how many scouts came, the Saints brought, I think it was 3. The Bills brought a couple.
There was
and-
multiple Jets people there.
Yeah, so those
Oh,
are the
geez.
teams that I mean, we can't read anything into this, but usually if you bring more than one scout, you're probably more interested than a team that brings one scout.
That's just kind of like an easy rule.
The thing
for
with
them.
Yeah.
the Jets, I mean, they're a great running team. They were 6th last year in the NFL, but if they get Chris Johnson, I think that would kind of
Yeah.
take away from any chance Terrance has going there, just because they already have a decent running back. So
I think right now there's actually 3 most likely landing spots for me that I see. I think Tennessee makes a lot of sense, mainly
Yes.
just because leading into Pro Day, everything that I read about Terrance pretty much revolved around the Titans
Yes.
looking at him in some way, shape, or form. Plus, they had him in even before his Pro Day, which tells you a lot about their interest level in him. I also think that the Jaguars are an interesting landing spot because, as you and I were talking about yesterday, really their running back depth chart now consists of Toby Gerhart, and that's
it.
And I also think that the Jaguars are obviously a young team right now, and that's what they're building for. So it makes sense to draft a rookie that you think could potentially develop in the next 3 years or so. And then the other thing for me is the Ravens. Because if you followed, I unfortunately followed the Ravens on Twitter, and they were
something
like,
unfortunate about that.
there's a few things. I'm just kidding. I have nothing against like the Ravens staff, just the team. But they had a guy from Ravens.com there,
Yes.
who was reporting, and he was tweeting out pictures of Terrance lifting weights, doing the interview after his Pro Day. He was also tweeted out like what he measured in at. For the record, he measured in at 5'9", 230.
Yep.
There was a tweet that went out that said 262.
That's really big. I don't know.
I was hanging out with some buddies of mine last night watching the game, and they're like, "Do you know Terrance West was 262?" I was like, "No, he's not. He's 230."
that Ravens Twitter account had tweeted out 262. So there was some miscommunication there somewhere, but it wasn't. There's no way it's 262.
No.
And Terrance said after his Pro Day workout that he weighed in at 230. So
Yeah.
that's the number that we're gonna go with. And they were just like the Ravens social media account was just very active about him.
I think also just because he's a local kid, a
Yeah.
lot of Ravens fans are gonna be like, "Oh, get that kid from Towson," but they got, well, who knows what's gonna happen with Ray Rice, but Bernard Pierce, he's got Justin Forsett, who was with Gary Kubiak for
Yeah.
Houston, so he really likes him. I don't know. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, the 4-set deal was the one that I want Terrance on the Ravens, but the 4-set deal for me in terms of Terrance going to the Ravens, now I feel like it doesn't make sense unless they think that Terrance can beat 4-set in training camp, which I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, also one thing Terrance has going for him with the Ravens is Bernard Pierce, because they're like family.
Yeah, he was there yesterday.
Yeah.
We talked to him, so you'll see it in.
Yeah.
in,
That was Bernard?
Yeah,
we got
yeah.
quotes from him.
You couldn't invite me real quick and be like, "Oh, come on, man.
We're sorry.
Come on."
But he was there, and he was wearing some nice shoes that matched his shirt perfectly, and we were wondering how many pairs of shoes he has that match his shirts. He had some style, let's just put it that way. So did Terrance, by the way.
Yeah, Terrance was looking good in the all neon.
Yes, he was.
But I think the Bernard Pierce factor. I mean, he was there. He literally stayed for all of Pro Day. Mm-hmm. He stayed there he was going to stay there for Terrance to interview with the Jaguars. And he was there at the workouts and in the weight room and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of an interesting factor. Is that if something happens with Ray Rice and he gets suspended, I could definitely see Bernard Pierce going to Ozzie Newsome or someone in the front office and saying that they should definitely take Terrance.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. We'll see what happens. I think the Titans.
I think the
Titans are my front runner right now.
I think the Titans is a really neat opportunity for him too, because once they release Chris Johnson, their really only running back is Sean Green, and I feel like Terrance.
The fumble machine, Sean Green.
Yeah, I feel like Terrance could easily beat him out for a starting job in training camp.
I guess they do also. They signed Dexter McCluster. He's not
He's not a running back,
Yeah,
though.
he's
a wide receiver.
He's everything.
It's my dude in Madden, though.
But
Yeah.
no, it would be interesting. The Titans. I think those three teams, the Jaguars, Titans, and Ravens, definitely seem like they would fit.
And the Bills were really talkative to him yesterday too. But
Which I
Fred
don't.
Jackson, CJ Spiller, like even if he went there, he wouldn't really see the field. So.
yeah, I don't really
Yeah.
get that.
I guess it'd be kind of a good learning experience being behind two of the best running backs in the league. It'd be a good learning curve, but I mean,
yeah.
I think he could play. I don't think he needs to be like one of those guys who sits around for 2-3 years behind some
Right.
And
He has the
yeah.
body to play.
I think the Bills would be out because of that. I think the Jets. I just don't think that will turn out. I think the Jets will get someone from free agency.
I think they're going to get Chris Johnson. If I'm Chris Johnson, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
They run the ball all the time.
Yeah.
And then Michael Vick, that's a speedy bet.
And then the Cardinals. The Cardinals is a team that's intriguing. They have Andre Ellington, but other than that, Rashard Mendenhall retired. So, yeah.
But no, good for him.
Yeah, I mean,
Getting out before he can't walk anymore.
got to do what you got to do. I
Yeah.
guess.
He got beat up a lot in Pittsburgh against the Ravens. Remember when he said he was going to run for 100 against the Ravens and Ray Lewis broke his shoulder on Monday Night Football?
That's right. I never advocate for violence, but that was pretty cool.
I do advocate for violence sometimes. that was called for.
Yeah. And then the other thing, when I was doing research on Thursday, we'll have out our cover story is going to be on Terrance's draft prospects, and we're going to tie in pro day and things like that. And when I was doing research for that cover story to help out Matt, Mel Kiper did this conference call that the USA Today and some other newspapers listened in on.
Mel Kiper loves Terrance West, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, he's
Mel
a big
Kiper,
fan.
Mel Kiper's local. So.
Yeah.
Mel, I want to talk to you, okay?
Call Matt back, please. And he said that the Browns are a possible landing spot for Terrance as well. And to me, I don't know.
Let us pray that this doesn't happen.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you guys would be so mad. I would like to see it just because I could laugh at all the Ravens fans for a little bit. But to me, I don't know if that's really feasible. I've seen a lot of mocks that say that the Browns are interested in Carlos Hyde with that.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Ohio,
and he's an Ohio State guy to begin
so
with.
you need some fans in the stadium.
Yeah. And I could easily see them taking Hyde with like that early second round pick that they have.
He's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he's
He is
big.
a beast.
So I think to me having Ben Tate and Carlos Hyde makes a lot of sense personally. But if they did decide to go to Terrance, I wouldn't be against it. I'd buy his jersey like immediately. So
You probably have to make it first.
yeah, that's true. I'd have to get a customized jersey. It'd be okay though.
Hey, but then you can send him a picture. I'll throw it up on Instagram.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Stop taking my pictures. Let's see, what else did I want to add about? Oh, the only other thing that I thought was interesting about Pro Day was at the end when he was kind of sort of running plays. It was really just Athens standing there and handing the ball off to him. But he also did run some routes, and Athens threw him the ball. And he talked about in the
Catch all of them.
Yeah, catch up every single one.
in the rain.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I listen to the Mel Kiper and Todd McShay podcast all the time on ESPN, and I usually watch their appearances on SportsCenter whenever possible, and they talk a lot about Terrance's hands. And I just don't like. I understand that that's something he's trying to improve on in the leading into the draft, and it's something that he emphasized at Pro Day. But I was looking at his stats, and he didn't really start catching the ball until last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I guess if you're going off game film, you're not gonna be like, oh, this guy has great hands. I mean, yeah, he might catch it, but that's not. He wasn't used that way in the offense.
Yeah.
No,
They
he
didn't
wasn't.
really do many
He
screens,
only
period.
in his first 2 years, he only had 10 total catches.
Yeah, they started, I don't remember what game it was, but they started kind of getting him active in the screen game when teams started to figure out, oh, hey, they're going to hand it to Terrance, we're going to stack the box. So they obviously made the right move and tried to get him outside. So he doesn't have much in terms of film and experience catching the ball, but he didn't look like he was struggling to do it. He caught every pass. The scouts there were talking about how he seems like he's a natural route runner. That was per Jason Lock. Can't say his name, but
Jason Lockenford.
yeah.
Also a local.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And then we're not saying that Terrance West can't catch the ball.
Yeah.
We're just saying we just haven't seen it because it would just.
And I don't really I just don't understand what makes Kiper and McShay
I mean,
say
maybe
that.
they have an inside with the scout.
That's true.
His
Yeah.
training facility that he was at down
Yeah.
in Tampa, that group.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Maybe they have it in there. We just didn't see it because
Yeah.
that just wasn't how
Yep.
the offense ran.
And the other thing I think that is an interesting factor with him going into a pro team is he wasn't really used as a blocker
no.
here. And I think that if you want to be an every down back in the NFL, you have to learn blocking schemes. And that's a lot of reasons why certain players aren't every down backs is because they can't block. It's why people have third down backs is just to
Yes.
go in there and block. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing heading into the draft and seeing what team he lands on, because he's got to be able to learn a blocking scheme in the NFL. You just have to as a running back.
Yeah.
And in Ambrose's offense, both Ambroses, I
Yes.
guess. He was hardly ever on the field. I mean, first of all, they didn't even pass it that much, but he was rarely used as a blocker. So I think it'll be interesting how his blocking skills pan out in the NFL as well.
Yeah, if I had to pick a weakness for Terrance, that and people make a big deal out of his speed. I don't think that's as big of a weakness, but
No,
blocking.
I mean, you could be like, oh, it's 40 times 4.55.
Yeah,
Was it?
4.54, I think.
4.54. Oh, there's people running 4.3s.
Yeah.
All right, well, put pads on him. That's his element.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's still good at 40 time.
But blocking something that he's gonna, I don't know how much experience he has, because it's almost like the receiving. He didn't do it that much, so it'll be something that he's probably going to have to learn when he goes to camp, and it'll be interesting to see how well he adapts to whatever offense he's going to be playing in, because he may be asked to block a good amount or may not. So that's an interesting factor that'll play into where he ends up and how well he does.
But hey, credit to him.
Yeah.
From Instagram, I find out that he's working it every day.
Yeah.
Training
Yes.
every day. He's putting in the work.
Yes.
And he seems to have the right attitude about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he said it multiple times in the press interview that I listened to. He's just staying out of trouble. I think Bernard Pierce has been a really good mentor for him.
Yep, that's what Bernard said, which
Yep.
I'm not going to give away too much because it's going to be in the article.
Yeah.
So check it out on
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad at you guys about that.
I'm sorry.
Well, I guess that's really. Is there anything else you guys want to add about Terrance? Just a other random note. You and I were talking to Dan O'Connell from the athletics department. He's the sports information director for football.
Yes.
And he was telling us that if Terrance went in the third round, he'd be the highest drafted Towson player ever.
Yeah.
Jermon and Meggett both went in the
Yeah.
fourth round.
Yep.
So that's just a random note. Anything else you
good
guys
old
want to add?
Meggett. We're not going to get into that.
Meggett.
So, yeah. I guess you don't know yet. All right. Well,
okay.
thank you guys.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you next week. And check out our story on Terrance on Thursday.